Welcome to another Dreams to Reality podcast. It has been a while, especially after lockdown coronavirus. And today I'm bringing to you my 50th guest. And he's a huge guest, Scott Reddin. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Thank you for coming. You are the first guest we've had who's decided to ride about 30, 40 miles just to get here. So thank you for that. If nobody knows who you are, who is Scott Reddin?
Well, Scott Reddin is a motorcycle rider. Raced in World Championship since I was 15. I started racing when I was 4, come up through the ranks. And I raced in World Championship for about 10 years. Then I dropped back to the National Championship for a year, won the championship, back in World Championship racing Superbikes now. Okay. I wouldn't say living the dream, but it's what I was brought up to do.
We get into that because for everybody watching at home, I don't want to get criticised for not being the biggest racing fan. I did actually get brought up watching Motogp. I remember when you won at Donington in, was it 2008? Yeah. However, one thing that I'm really fascinated in is what makes somebody successful, what it takes, the mindset, the kind of motivation behind that. So I don't want to really dive too much into your racing. We of course will. But at the same time, what fascinates me is I see you win a race on a Sunday, then on a Monday you do a 50-mile bike ride back in England. So I want to dive into all of those different things. However, let's take it back a little bit. When did it all start? When did you start racing?
Yeah, racing itself probably when I was 5, 6, kind of the minimum age to start. But I did start riding age 4 with motocross.
Racing what?
Motocross, you know, like most young kids do. Dads get a dirt bike, but I didn't like it. It wasn't up my street. You know, I was quite good, but I was intimidated by the sport, and it ended quite sharply. My dad threw the bike in the van, threw me in the van. We went home, and that was the end of that.
At what age?
4 and a half.
Why was you intimidated by it? What was it?
It was just everything was big. You know, when you're 4 and you're like this big, and you're riding the same tracks as the adults. Yeah. And you're riding adult tracks. It's quite a lot, and I can't really say that I really loved it. I really wanted to do it. I just found myself on the bike on the start line, and it just wasn't for me. And
then you transitioned over to
mini bikes. So it was like mini Motogp basically. And I did that, and that was more easy for me because there was no jumps. It was quite smooth. It didn't seem so intimidating. There was more kids doing it.
Yeah, okay.
And I jumped on it, and it was a bit of fun at first. And after a couple of weeks, the guy that owned the track said to my dad, "You should get him racing." And my dad laughed at him.
So why did your dad push the motorbikes? Is he really into motorbikes before, or was it just a hobby?
Yeah, I got a little bit different upbringing to most kids, I would say, because I had my dad and my uncle, which basically was like 2 dads for me.
Okay.
And they both did motocross. My dad was a good expert rider locally, but had no money to fund it. My uncle was the opposite. He had some money, but he was good for one lap, and then he was useless. He was more about the party life.
Got you.
And that's how I ended up in this situation, and both kind of pushing me at it. And then my parents split up probably 16, 17 times. And
that's a lot of time.
Yeah, it was a lot. And, you know, I was always made to decide. I had an older sister as well, and she always went to my dad, And then one day she said to me, "You just got to come with him one time." I remember it, and I didn't really want to, because when you're young, you always want to go to your mum. Yeah, so I think it's a normal thing, and I just went to my dad, and then we never saw her again.
And what age was that?
Must have been 5.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quite early within the racing of it, and I haven't seen her since.
Wow. So just for a bit of understanding, similar situation with me, but mine happened a little bit later at 11. Let's dive into that, because I don't want to quickly miss. Obviously, it's how does that make you feel?
I look
Do you know who she is?
I wouldn't know her if she was sat there, but I'm fine with that. Like, if she wasn't there when I needed her, I certainly don't need her now. She has tried to contact the family a couple of times, coincidentally after Donington when I won. Tried to contact, so not interested. Then I almost won the Moto2 World Championship. There was some speculation trying to contact me again. Then when I came back to BSB and British Superbikes, she came to a race with her brother, and it was one of those things, I wouldn't even know if I saw her anyway, but my sister was running my merchandise store for me, and she said she was there. My sister don't like her also because it was the same thing. And I never saw her, but I thought, why are you coming now? It's like you want something from me. But when I needed something from you, when I was young, you wasn't there to support me. So I'm happy my life took that turn, because I didn't have to worry about it. It got it out at the young age. Probably happening younger was better than happening a little bit older, because I didn't really understand what was going on. When you get older, I think you understand more the situation, it has more of an impact.
Yeah, it does.
By the time I understood, it was like my grandma was my mum. Spent a lot of time with her.
Exactly the same.
You know,
the same story.
Didn't spend a lot of time with my dad because he was working to try and fund the racing.
You watched some of my videos?
No.
You must have watched some of my videos.
So it's one of those. And I think it happens to a lot of people out there.
I think the hardest thing for me, when it was a bit older, being 11, and it was just a nasty divorce, it got really horrible. And just even then going to your friend's house and seeing how a normal family kind of operates, and seeing them kiss their mum and hug their mum and stuff, I think at that point, that really hit me hard, because I remember it quite well.
But you know, that situation, what you got, that came to me really late in my life, because I was quite solo all my life racing. You don't see those family things. But when I started to get in a serious relationship, I would say it was my last two, but it was when I was starting to be with their parents and see them, and then you get invited to a family dinner, and I felt really uncomfortable, and I didn't know how to manage the situation. I would not want to go, and she'd always say, "Why don't you want to go?" And I said, "It doesn't feel normal for me. Why does everyone care about each other? Like, I feel like I don't care about anyone there."
And what age do you think that you was thinking like that?
Probably in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Because I've never been in that situation to experience it. I've always been alone, or maybe with my girlfriend, and we'd go and eat alone, or maybe at my dad's. But my dad's is like a Christmas thing.
This is why I love the podcast, because you can just go off, and I think I resonate with that so much. I've been with my wife for 6 years, we've been married 3, and it wasn't until I went into her family, I've seen a whole different ball game of how people treat each other. Since kind of similar to what you just said, even if you have a disagreement or an argument, you kiss and you make up the next day. It's not like you cut off and we're never going to talk to you again. And it was just nice to see that. But then, do you think a part of that comes down to, I don't know, environment maybe? So for example, when I was obviously met my wife, all her friends, everybody, all their parents are together. All my friends, all their parents are split up, they don't know their one parent, whatever it is. Do you think that's a part of environment, or do you think it's just the sign of the times?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. It can be that. But it's like, it seems to be a bit more normal from our side. But then you go across seas, and it seems to be normal. You have bigger families, you know. If it was Italians, or I had Dutch girlfriends, like, it was all abroad, and it all seemed a lot different to how we approached things and how they did things together and how much it meant to them. When I was growing up, it was about me racing and nothing else. So I didn't even have a childhood. Like, with my fiance now, she sometimes says to me, "I'm really sad you didn't have a childhood." I didn't know a difference. But when all my mates were going, you know, at 15, go to the park, steal a bit of alcohol, go drink, like you do as kids, everyone does it. I wasn't there. My uncle would come and grab me by the scruff of the neck, take me home, train. You ain't going out, you need to do this, you need to do that. You know, and
are you glad that you done that?
Yeah, because now it's given me an opportunity. And I have this discussion with some parents now that, you know, they want their kid to do well, but they want their kid to be happy. So it's a hard thing. I spent a lot of my time not happy because I didn't even want to race. It was I was pushed to do it, but now, like, I go and say to my dad and my uncle, "Thank you."
Of course.
Because you've given me an opportunity to make a career of my life. But if you just let me did what I wanted to do...
It's tough, isn't it? It's tough. Before, I don't want to just pass over it. I think the hardest thing is talking about the family dynamic is when you do finally have kids, just got engaged, congratulations on that. But when you do finally have kids, like I got 3 kids now, the hardest thing is not just childcare, not like you're trying to pass the kids off, but there's nobody on my side of the family who sees my kids. Not one person.
Okay.
So for me, obviously then it's harder, it puts more pressure on my wife, obviously it puts more pressure on her family. So I think for me, obviously as you said, you became a lot more self-aware of the whole situation. For me, that's really hit me hard just recently. So I'm like, wow, like my kids are never gonna,
have that
bond and,
type thing from your side.
Yeah. Especially because that's all I want. That's all I thrive on having, really, is family's one of the most important things. Anyway, let's change it up. I got a bit deep. You said you didn't want to race, but let me ask you a quick question. What has been the highlight of your career so far up to now?
There's been a lot. There hasn't just been one thing where I've gone, that was the one, because my career has just done this.
You've basically grown up on TV in a way. You've grown up in the face of people.
Yeah, but
and obviously you said you didn't have a childhood. Obviously a lot of the teenagers I work with can't necessarily resonate with that. How was it? Because tell me if I'm wrong, this is going off pure memory, because I was into racing, so I was aware of you in school. I was a year older, so obviously you don't mess about with the people younger than you. But did you leave in what, year 8 or year 9?
Year 8 or 9. Even when I was there, it was
so
quite
you was
slim.
great at racing at that point. Where did you go once you left school? In year 8?
We was racing off in Spain and France.
So did you live in Spain and France?
No, we lived in England.
Okay.
My dad drove there quite a lot. When I was 13, I got took up by Red Bull Academy, and we had to go and stay in Spain, but the parents weren't allowed. So my dad or my uncle would go fly with me, because I wasn't old enough, leave me at this compound. I was with 6 other riders.
Wow.
And we'd stay there for like 2 or 3 weeks doing like a training camp, and then they'd come pick me up again. So I look at that, it was sound, but when I look now and I see 13-year-old kids,
that's a lot.
I'm thinking like...
You didn't have a chance to be a kid, ultimately.
No, I had to grow up really fast, and that was one thing that a lot of people said when I was younger or now, it's like you was very mature for your age. I thought it was normal.
It had to be.
At 15, I was traveling the world with someone from the team, not even a parent all the time.
A lot of 15-year-olds I work with now won't even travel 5 miles into their city centre, because it seems like a whole complete different world for them.
And I didn't have a choice, it was like I had to learn on the moment. And a lot of riders that are young, they get a management very early and they control them. I was from Gloucester, I had that mentality, and I just did my own thing. I did the right things, I did the wrong things, but I had to try and find my own lines to keep me within reason. And sometimes I did the wrong thing and I got, say, punished for it, and then I sometimes do the right things. But I had to learn as I was going. And then when I did get like 16, 17, 18, 19, I felt like I was 25, 26. I was looking at 22-year-olds thinking, you need to grow up. And I was 18 at the time. But
at what point did you enter the Motogp then? Obviously in the 125s.
Yeah, I was 125s when I was 15, youngest ever rider to compete at the time.
15?
15.
How crazy was it, I guess at 15, 16, being in the same paddocks as people like Valentino Rossi at the time? Obviously you raced against them now, but how crazy was it at that time to be, or was it just the environment? Was it normal?
It was normal.
Was it inspiring? Was it the opposite of inspiring? What was it like?
Yeah, I don't know if the way I was brought up, I had a different mentality to a lot of people, athletes, riders, but I never really had someone I admired. You know what I mean? Like I was never a massive Valentino Rossi fan. Never have been, never will be. He's a great rider and great for the sport, but I was never like, oh.
Is that because you've got the capability of for doing it yourself?
It's possible, yeah.
Let me quickly ask you a quick question. Does anybody inspire you? So, for example, mine would be my nan, my grandmother. I don't really get inspired off celebrities and stuff. Obviously, it'd be great to interview people and stuff like that. But does anybody inspire you? Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
I couldn't tell you.
Cameron Parker, mate. Come
Yeah.
on.
I'll be honest, like also famous people, it doesn't do it for me. I wouldn't be like, oh, like that's so and so, like get crazy. It doesn't.
But that's my point now.
I don't know if it's because
yeah.
I'm just focused on what I want to do and what I want to achieve and how I want to get there, and everything else around doesn't mean a lot to me.
That's what I was literally about to ask you. Where does that come from? Where do you think that comes from? It might not be the right answer, but where does that... Because even arranging this podcast, I think people know, and I think that's why people follow you, that's why people like you, is because you are a normal person. I mean, I had your mobile number, called you up, and like, yeah, cool. Where is it? Send me your pin. I'm going to ride my bike.
Yeah.
Where does that come from?
That comes from childhood and the people you're around.
Okay.
I've also noticed that with a lot of other people. You see what their parents are like, they act like that. My dad's never had an ego. He still works now. He's a full-time window fitter.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's working every day.
So he don't travel with you then?
No.
Did he used to?
When I was younger, he had to, and then I employed him to drive the motorhome for me because I thought it's nice for him. I need to get a driver. He had a truck license, nice for him to travel. We did that for a year. But he's just a workhorse. Like, he just works and works and works.
He still fits windows now.
Yeah.
That could possibly be the difference.
And I think that's it. Like, I look at him and maybe...
Still in Gloucester.
Yeah. Maybe I admire him and I don't know it. That's why I act the way that I act. Like, I've always worked for everything.
But you can't act like the big guy, can you, when your dad's doing what your dad's...
I would never be like that, and people said that, like, you've never really changed. When I was in Motogp, I used to get a lot of shit from the way I acted. But I
want to touch on that.
But I said to people, you're not going to change me. I'm not going to change for anyone, anything, any money, any place. There's no reason for me to change. If I'm a multi-millionaire world champion idol of the world, or I'm Scott Redding that goes boxing or cycling or motocross or works, it doesn't make a difference to me. And a lot of people, it confuses them because they don't understand why. And when I came from Motogp, and I was going through a bad time, and I left Motogp, had a bit of depression and stuff.
Why did you leave?
Because it was...
Because you was in, I guess, what was it, 600s?
I was in Moto2 600s.
That's 600s, and you were top 3?
Yeah, I was second in the World Championship. I had a 3-race advantage with 3 races to go. And I had an incident where I broke my wrist. Never broke a bone in my body till that day, and I've had some monster crashes. It just wasn't meant to be. I've got to Melbourne. I had the operation Saturday. I woke up Sunday morning, 5 o'clock. I phoned to the organisation, I want to race. I said, the championship's on the line. I got a plate, 8 screws. It ain't going anywhere. I'm going to be fine. They said, no, you went under anaesthesia. I said, why didn't you tell me that? Bearing in mind, the organisation is Spanish-based. My competitor was Spanish.
So what are you saying, Scott?
Let's put it this way. They didn't let me race in Australia for 10 laps, which I know I could have done with one hand.
So you could have just needed one more point?
I just needed to finish within the points for 3 races. And there was 3 races to go. Then we had Japan 5 days after. So we flew from Australia to Japan.
It's a shame it was so close at that point.
Yeah, well this is the thing. And you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday I was working.
It's always normally like a 2-week.
Yeah, but we have the flyaways. We have 3 races on the bounce.
Okay, got you.
And Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I was in the gym training, trying to build strength on the other side of my body to compensate. Got to Japan. I had to do a physical test to see if I could ride. And they said, oh, I don't think you can ride. You need to do 10 push-ups. Bearing in mind my left wrist, I couldn't bend it no further than that. And I said, fair enough on the push-ups, but I don't need to bend my wrist back. We don't race like this. I said, we race like this. So I'll do 10 push-ups on the bed and we make a deal. They said, okay. So I did 10 push-ups. My soul was leaving my body through the pain that I had. Bearing in mind, this is 3 days later after an operation.
Wow.
I went out, I did practice, I did all the session. I think I was 4th or 5th. Came in. They said, oh, you need to do another physical test. We don't think you're strong enough.
After you've already been on the bike?
And I did the whole session. I did long runs and I finished 4th or 5th.
Yeah.
So that evening I had to do a test again. And the push-ups wasn't it. They said, oh, if the bike makes this, you won't be able to hold it. I said, first force is 600. It never does this. I'm 75 kilos. It ain't going to do it. No, but we need to be sure. So they held my hand like that, both hands, and they pulled and pushed it, and I had to hold it. And I could feel in my wrist.
Is that really how they tested it?
Yeah, this is what they was doing.
They actually grabbed your wrist.
They grabbed my wrist and pulled and pushed as if it was a handlebar, and I had to hold it. And I looked at him in the eye, and I was like, "There's no pain. There's no pain. It's fine." I held it, but I could feel the wrist opening and closing, opening and closing. I left out. I went back to my office. I cried through the pain. I qualified 14th, 15th for Sunday. I went off the start, and I thought I just need to finish in the top 15. I can do it. It's 2 times. Whatever the pain, I'll get there. Went into the first corner, exited the first corner. There was a bit of commotion in front, and the rider crashed, and everyone kind of fanned a bit out the way. And I was wrong place, wrong time. There was a bike and a rider. I pulled the brake, and I remember as I was hitting the bike in slow motion, I had the voice of the surgeon on my wrist in Australia saying, if you damage that again, you'll end your racing career. And I was looking at this bike thinking, I'm going to end my race career. So I literally, you can see in the video, I braked hard. I put my arm here, and I just basically rode into the bike, crashed again on the floor, couldn't breathe. I thought I broke my elbow at the time because it was sticking out, a massive hematoma on my back, lead there. 6 days after I'd been in hospital again, thinking, it's just ain't meant to be. So I was back in.
So the bike crashed in front of you, did it?
Bike crashed in front of me. Everyone kind of got out of the way. I was wrong place, wrong time. I hit the bike at about 70 mile an hour. Then I was led on the floor again. Went to the hospital, was in hospital, watched the race. The other guy won the race, championship was done. And I thought, really, is that what I deserve? Like I kept getting knocked down, but I kept getting up. I kept trying. I kept trying. And bearing in mind the championship was done at this point, we had one more round left in Valencia. It was all left corners, broken left wrist. And the guy in 3rd place could finish 2nd. So I couldn't even just say, okay, you know what, I won't race, I'll recover. I had to race, and I managed to get 2nd in the championship. But it took a lot away from me. Because I wanted to win. I raced to win, don't race for nothing else. Then I got onto Motogp, got a contract. The bike was not really that good, but I was doing really good results for that bike.
How much does the bike affect? Is there much difference between the Motogp riders at the top, or is it just the bike what makes the difference?
I would say...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say 10, 15 years ago, rider makes a difference. That's why Valentino Rossi was as good as he was, and you had a couple of guys come for a couple of years and drop away. But now I would say the bike's easily 70%.
Yeah.
Because the electronics, the tyres, is one of those things. And when I realised that, it kind of disheartened me because I never really found myself on a package that was able to win. And I had a couple of podiums in Motogp. I fell short of a couple due to technical problems. And it was hard because I just want to win. When I'm finishing 15, 16, 17, it's humiliating to me. I think there's millions of people around the world watching me.
So I've read an article. I don't know how accurate that article is. And obviously you've just said that you're always yourself and you're not going to change for anyone. I don't know who the former boss is, but this would have personally hit me. So I want to touch on how do you deal with criticism and stuff like that. He said something like the Motogp is just for dedicated and people who can focus and concentrate. Obviously I'm going off a little bit there. And you weren't cut for Motogp. How does that make you feel?
Who is it?
It's one of your former team bosses. Do you want me to find out on Google?
Fuck him.
No, but how I love it.
You know what I
but
mean?
No, but that's what I mean. So like, how did you like overcome that criticism? Because that's exactly how I would feel, and I would feel motivated to then just in general anyway.
To be honest, criticism doesn't affect me because unless that person can do a better job than me, it don't mean anything. If somebody who's a world champion's telling me that, I would go, you know, maybe you got a point, mate. But when you probably can't even ride a bike within 10 seconds of me on a track. You don't even put the work ethic that I put in. You don't. It doesn't mean anything to me. You can say all you want, but actions is different. I was, and still am, probably one of the most dedicated riders on the grid. But I have a flip side. I have a show side where it makes people think like, is this kid serious?
That's
you know
the point,
what I mean?
right? So I think that's where the article was going, saying that obviously MotoGP is really professional, this and that. But here's my point. Because you wasn't quite getting well with a bike, and if you had a better bike, I generally feel like you would definitely be doing a lot more. If you was in the top 3, would this other side you're talking about, would that have been accepted? Is that just an excuse? Oh, Scott Redding's not...
It is an excuse.
I think it is, because if you was first or second, nobody's going to say anything.
And I will
look at Rossi and some of the stuff he used to do and things
and
like
people
that.
don't even know half the stuff.
There
you know
you
what I
go.
mean? But I'll correct something onto a next thing. So this is how it all happened. Basically in the sport, the bike's never wrong, it's always someone else. So if you ain't getting results, it's got to be the
How much
the
is one of
rider.
the bikes worth?
The MotoGP bike, about
Yeah.
1.6 million. You know.
1.6 million.
Yeah. And it's hard because they do put work in, but sometimes it just doesn't work. And then when I was in Aprilia, so it was my last season in Aprilia, I got a fine of 60 grand for saying the bike's a piece of shit to the media.
You got a personal fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they took me in the office and they tried slamming books and computers down. I said, look, you don't intimidate me, so stop. I said, I'm pissed off. I want to win. I want to make results, and you can't support that for me right now. I'm frustrated. I'm angry. I can't express anything. I said, what I said was correct. How I said it was wrong. And we came to an agreement. You know, if I kept my mouth shut basically for the rest of the year, they won't give me the fine. Kept my mouth shut. 2 days after the last race, the fine come through. So it shows the sort of people that I was working with. And through that time of Aprilia, I started to go through depression because I couldn't accept that this was happening to me. Like I said, when I finished like 16, 17, like the last 3 positions, I feel like the world's watching that, and it humiliates me. I hate it. But I couldn't express to no one. I couldn't talk to no one because I had a side, I was that happy guy, I was being funny, I was doing this, but it was a cover-up. It wasn't the reality. I was drinking quite a lot, yeah, I was. Not during race weekend, not before race weekend, but after, yes. And I was still training, but I had this double persona of life.
Do you also think it was because of everything you've also been through? When you was 5 years old, and it does all catch up at some point.
It was the fact that there was no way out for me. If I wanted to leave, I had to pay €1 million to get out of my contract. I don't have €1 million. I haven't even paid €1 million, not even close. So it wasn't an option for me. So I had to stay and ride this bike. And I'm not one of those people that can just go out and ride and just say, you know what, fuck it, just ride,
It's a job.
take your salary.
It's a job.
It's a job, but it's my life. You
That's
know?
the difference. For some people, it's just their job, but for you, it's your life.
Yeah,
so that's why you want to.
There's a lot of guys that would go out there and say, I'll just take the paycheck, fucking end of the year, I'm gone.
Yeah.
But I couldn't handle the humiliation I was getting, the social media attacks of like, it bothered me because I knew I couldn't perform. I couldn't show people what I could do. And it got to the point where I was just like, I didn't want to ride, but I had to. I was crying. I come into the pit box and I was crying. I said, I don't want to do this. And then I turned to the team manager. I said, I don't want to do this, but I don't have a choice. So then I would go back out on track and I would ride like an absolute idiot. I would literally ride to try and crash. Then I would come in, the adrenaline would go down. I'd start crying again. I'm thinking, what the fuck are you doing? You're absolutely risking your life beyond for this.
Yeah.
Just because I was frustrated.
Yeah.
And then I ended up with no contract at the end of that year and I wanted to quit. I said to my family, I had one point in the middle of the season where I kind of had a bit of a breakdown. I said, my manager was there, my dad was there, and the team manager was there. I was supposed to test. It was a Monday test in Misano. and I went out partying. You know, I just wanted to get it out of my head, and I didn't come back to test the next day. I woke up at 11 o'clock, didn't even know where I was, what happened, who I was with, and there was people out searching for me. They called to local police trying to find me because they didn't know. And I guess people knew I was in pain, because why would they be worried?
Yeah, definitely.
And I had to sit down in that moment, bearing in mind the team spends hundreds of thousands to go there and do these tests. And I sat there crying, and I said to my dad, like, I don't even want to be here. And I don't mean in this paddock. I don't want to be here in this situation. I want out. And it's the first time I've seen my dad actually go, fuck. Because he's always like, everything will be okay. You'll be okay. He's one of those, like, brush it over.
What do you mean out? Out of what?
I wanted out of life.
Okay,
Like, I couldn't get out. No one understood the pressure and the pain I was in. And it was hard for me to try and explain, because everyone's like, oh, it's all right, you're a Motogp rider, just, you know, take the money. Like, you don't get it. This is not the point for me. And the moment I said that to my dad was like a release, because then even he was like, that's my son. And then like,
Bottom line, that's my son first.
Yeah, but it took all that before someone could realize. And then we said, right, okay. I said I wanted to quit. I had a couple of weeks off, and I phoned my manager. I said, look, let's try and get something where I can prove myself. I don't feel like I've shown my full potential. I was not hanging around with bad people, but I was hanging around with people that wanted to kind of make me happy, but we're doing the wrong thing.
Or not
A little bit of both.
Okay.
But I was doing the wrong thing. I think I was living in Holland at the time. Great people, lots of places to party. You know, it's not the environment I need to be in. And I sat there and I thought, do you want to let everything go you've worked for, or do you want to dig deep and find your way out? So I was like, fuck, what can I do? So I said, right, I'm going to go get an apartment in Italy. So I got an apartment in Italy, barely knew anyone around, which is what I wanted. I wanted to just be on my own and just think about the things that I needed to do and what I've done and how I can come out of it with no distraction of people saying, oh, come with us, because you get led down the wrong paths. You can easily become a yes man.
So I've been watching your, you know, some of your vlogs, because I was curious. I'm all about the journey. For me, it's not about the mistakes you've made. It's all about how you handle it and how you move forward. And even if you see the level of maturity from your vlogs at the beginning to who you are now, and that has nothing.
Which was the vlogs you watched?
On your YouTube.
Yeah, like the early ones.
Yeah. So that's what I wanted. So I wanted to see some at the beginning, and I wanted to see some and what you're doing now, the stuff you're posting now, and just seeing the growth and the maturity. It's not saying that you can't mess about. It's not saying that you can't have fun, dance, like what you do, put on Instagram. It's not saying that, but naturally, there seems like a massive difference in level of focus, maturity, intensity.
But those videos you watched was when I was in the worst time of my career.
What with the purple hair?
That was the show side of I'm not hurting, but reality was I'm in fucking hell. Like, I'm hating every second, and that was my get out. You know, I was making like vlogs and stuff, traveling the world, enjoying myself, having fun.
So the more how you went in, did you act more?
Yeah.
What's the words? Yeah, did you put more on a show?
I put on more of a show because I wanted to almost trick myself into thinking you're not suffering, you have a good life, you can do these things, you can have fun, but the reality was it always came with a massive backlash. You know, when you come down from that partying, travel, great, and you come back to reality, you're like, whoa, actually it's not good.
Everyone could be there, and as you said, you got criticised a lot, and people could be firing messages at you, saying a lot of hurtful things, people you work with and stuff. But just say you did do what you said, you know, you did go out, you did end, and it was enough. Enough is enough. Then everybody would soon kind of change their tone and think like, do you know what I mean? And I think the reason why I talk about that is because people just don't understand what what people's going through. People don't know the difficulties and the struggles, what happens behind closed doors. So I always talk about, it could be cliche, but you just got to work hard and just be kind, because you actually don't know what somebody else is going through.
You never know what someone's going through, because most of the time when people are suffering, they put on a front that they're not. And it's hard to kind of work through that to find out if they are or they're not.
It's happened many times, even with these guys when they've come traveling with me and stuff. There's been times when, like, I'll be crying, I'll be down, I'll be sad, and then all of a sudden, obviously, Dave has to turn on the camera, and I'm a complete different person. And it's just about trying to work that out and
but that's also the problem, is when you put on the camera, you're a different person to when you're not on the camera, but it's your job. You need to. When I'm at the racetrack, doesn't matter how I feel.
It's not about you.
I need to be there. I need to smile. As much as I don't want to, I've got to. That's when it's hard, because you're doing what naturally you're not. Naturally, I think, I wouldn't say funny, but I like to have a good time. I like to have a laugh.
Are you contracted to do all the media stuff that you do?
We have to do, yeah, it's kind of part of it, basically.
So if you turn around and said, there's Marshawn Lynch, I don't know if you heard of him, NFL player, and he didn't want to do any interviews, even leading up to the Super Bowl and stuff. And when somebody asked him a question, he goes, "I'm here so I just don't get fined." Next question.
But it's not that bad for us, because sometimes it's more negative. The media nowadays, they're trying to get all the small things and make a negative story out of it. I could say this, and this, have 95% of it positive, and go a little thing saying, well, and the headline is that 5% that I said. So you're kind of going against the media thing. But a time that helped me was, I had to go even more down before I came out of this hole, was the time I was in Italy on my own. I was riding motocross, and I tore the ligaments in my ankle when I was at the track. It's about an hour away, just me and the dog, and I thought, fuck. I thought, when it happened, I honestly thought my foot was facing backwards, and I thought, don't look down, just ride back to the van, because you need to get back. I looked down, my foot was still forward, and I knew it wasn't good. And there was these Italian guys there, and they were like, "Oh, I need to go to the ambulance." I said, "No." I said, "Put my bike in." And I drove back. So I drove back an hour, and my foot was absolutely throbbing. I pulled up to the hospital outside the front, hobbled myself in there, got in, did some checks, ligaments. Thought, fair play. That's, a month of doing nothing. And after 3 weeks, it was winter time, so it was like snowing and stuff. I had to go to the market. I came back, I was on crutches because I was on my own. Fucking slid on some ice, put my foot down, tore ligaments a bit again. So it was again another 2 weeks, and then I got a contract to race British Superbikes.
Okay, quickly before we go on to British Superbikes, do you have any regrets when it comes to Motogp? Could you have done anything better? Could you have handled anything better? Do you have any regrets at all?
I wouldn't say I regret. I don't really regret anything. I take it as a learning experience. That's how I look at it. I've done a lot of bad things and a lot of good things. I had a lot of times I had fun. I've had, and when I look at it now, I would maybe go, maybe I shouldn't have done this so obvious for people to see what I was like. But then on the other hand, people love me for that. Like that he is who he is. But I would love to have the mentality and the knowledge that I have now. If I could have had that 10 years ago, I would have probably been world champion. But I didn't. It was my learning process, and this is what I've got, and I've got it now. I need to make the most of it now.
Taking responsibility. I like it. Came into British Superbikes. Obviously, that's a massive step back, or it appears to be a step back from Motogp. But why was that good for you? What was the positives in that situation? Was it nice to spend more time in England? Because I guess you haven't really done it for a long time. How was that whole situation and stuff like that?
That situation came when I said I wanted to quit, and then I had a few weeks and I was in Italy, and I thought there was a fire burning inside of me saying, "You're not done yet." So I thought, all right, that's what you're telling me. Phoned manager up, I said, "Look, I want to race, but I want a bike that can win and a team that can win. And I don't care if it's World Superbikes, British Superbikes, Moto America, fucking jet ski, horse racing, I don't care. Give me some package that I can show my potential.
Yeah, but yeah.
I honestly, I don't care where it is, what it is, how it is, I will show you. So I went to World Superbike because MotoGP, the first step back's World Superbike.
Why is that a step back though? So
maybe not a step back.
This is my question then. What is the difference between the two? Why is it perceived that it is not to the same standard as MotoGP?
Yeah.
I don't know. In short, what is the difference and why does it appear to be that way?
Yeah, I was probably wrong to say it's a step back. I'd say it's more of a step to the side.
Got you.
Because you still have, you know, I would say the first 10 riders best in the world.
Because I always remember Troy Bayliss, obviously he was World Superbikes, wasn't he?
Yes.
And he went over to do MotoGP.
And he won a race, yeah. Last race at Valencia. Because he won the World Superbike Championship. They gave him a wild card and he won.
Yeah.
It's just different. With different bikes, but the riders are still riding on the absolute limit. Like, I was a podium finisher in MotoGP and winning races in Superbike. You know, there's Alvaro Bautista was podium finisher in MotoGP, was winning races in Superbike. So the level, there is a little bit of difference, but mainly because the Superbike riders tend to be a little bit older, or they've come through British Superbikes and then not gone to MotoGP. It's more up here, what's different, what I've learned from being in World Championship. And I noticed that mostly when I went to BSB. That was when I kind of realized the caliber of rider that I was. So when I left...
The track seems so much smaller and tighter as well.
Well, when I left the MotoGP and I got this offer to go to... I wanted to go to World Superbikes. Nobody wanted me. You know, he's done. He's no good. He's this, he's that.
So young still.
If you bring 80, 90, 100,000 euros, he can ride. I said, I'll never pay to put my ass on that bike and risk my life. I never have, I never will, so forget it. What's next?
So they said that you had to pay?
A lot of riders pay, yeah.
What?
Yeah,
what, even at the top?
Even in MotoGP. There's riders that have paid to race in MotoGP. Big money.
And they don't get paid to race at all?
They might get some money off their sponsors, but their parents have a lot of money, multi-millionaires. They'll pay 800 to $1 million for a year. You know, that's where it's out of my, I don't get it. But maybe for them, that's like me going motocross on the weekend for a hobby, paying £30 to ride. That's their
equivalent.
Their equivalent, which I never had that money to ever do that. And I never would pay to risk my life.
I mean, you don't need to.
No, but I do it because I want to win and be successful and to earn money. It's my job. I don't do anything else. I dedicate everything to that. So when they was asking for money, I said to my manager, fuck them, we'll be back. What's next? Okay, British Superbikes. Then I was riding for Paul Bird Motorsport in British Superbikes.
What is it? I don't need no numbers. What is the pay difference between MotoGP and British Superbike?
Do you want to know something that's going to blow your mind?
There isn't.
My last year in MotoGP, I think I earned more money in British Superbikes than I did in MotoGP.
What?
Because I was getting so underpaid in MotoGP because I was trying to get the breakthrough to make it. So I was accepting low pay. MotoGP riders are not getting paid money that people think they're getting paid. This is why there's so many young riders there now, because a younger rider, his dream is to go there. So if we offer him 3/4 left,
you can,
less,
yeah.
But they will, because to them that's big money, because they're so young.
You said you got a manager. Have you always had a manager?
Yes, and I did
and
get...
they negotiate your contracts, they negotiate everything, or...
Yeah, I almost got a bit shafted when I was younger. I signed a contract with a management kind of family, which kind of did look after me. But there was also something in the contract, in the small print, that said I basically would owe him €1 million in percents of merchandise and whatever else. So they basically took my name, and anything that had Scott Redding on, they got a percent until they got €1 million. Well, when I...
Sounds like Don King.
Mate, it's savage. And I was young. I think I
you
was
know no
13 when I
different.
signed that contract. My dad don't know difference. He fits windows. He ain't a businessman, you know what I mean? So when I went to Mark VDS racing my first year in Moto2 in the 600s, I was 17, and I was with the team manager from there, Michael Bartolini, who is now my personal manager. He was asking me, like, what you getting paid, you know, like, what do you do? Because I said, like, I don't really have money. And he knows, because he's paying me. I said, I get £500 a month. And the shock in his face, you know, I was 17, I've been racing professional for 3 years, and I had £500 a month. And £400 of that I was paying to my sister so she could afford to live in a house. And I had £100 a month to live on, basically, at 17. I was living with my sister, I wasn't living with my dad or anyone. And then he said, that's not right. And I said, well, what do you mean it's not right? He said, that's not right. It's like, I can look after you. So I did a contract with him, but then there was a problem with the other contract. So that went on for a long time, legal things. And then because I was under 16, it wasn't fully valid. So we managed to find a way through. I had to change I used to be called Scott Full Gas Redding. That was my motto. So now I had to change. I moved over to Redding Power so they can keep that name. And we had to just do some crazy stuff.
So they catch me up all the time on Instagram, Scott Redding, where is he? It's all these fan pages, and then it's, Redding Power.
So that was it. And I've had Michael now for ever since then, and he's looked after me.
So, okay, fast forward. So you got paid more racing in British Superbikes than you did Motogp. Obviously, I don't need to know the details. Just I'm fascinated by business, as you can probably tell. Do you get a cut out of everything you sell? Because obviously you see people wearing your stuff all the time.
Well, you do that yourself. That's your own.
That's your own thing, is it?
That's our own thing. I have to output to get it made.
Got you.
I need to then create a shop, which my sister was kind enough to kind of do that. But we had to do all of that ourselves to make it work.
Do you like that stuff?
I like it because it's nice to see people wearing your stuff, and surprisingly, out of the British riders, I probably got the biggest fan base, so you see the most of it.
You came from the MotoGP, yeah.
But it's just not worth it.
Branded clothes in general.
Yeah, you know, British Superbike, because I was like the star coming from MotoGP, I was making good results, I was doing crazy shit, people just loved me. So it was like, they felt like they wanted to be part of me, which was great. Everything I did before in MotoGP was kind of a waste of time. And the BSB thing was like, it reborned me, if this, you know what I'm saying? Like, where I come from such a down on the end of my MotoGP career, and I got to this British Superbike thing where a team went, we want him, whatever he wants, he gets.
Appreciated you, and
we need him to win the championship. And I said, fucking no problem. Like, I will do my absolute best to do it.
How was it going over the Cadwell Hill?
Scared the shit out of me every time.
If you don't know what it is, it's basically a jump on a track.
Yeah.
What speed you hit that?
I couldn't tell you, mate. I just shit my pants every time. It's not something I've ever done because I've always raced on Grand Prix tracks.
Because I've been there, and I was about probably when you was winning Donington, and I actually went with my dad, and I can't remember the rider. I don't want to say too much, but I asked at that time for a picture. Obviously, he loved it back then. And then he went over the next time. He said no, he's too busy. So the next time he went over to it, he snapped both of his legs.
Fucking hell.
I should take a picture without joking.
But it was one of them because I never raced on those circuits when I was younger.
Tight, it's narrow.
I never raced on British circuits. So when I came to British Superbikes, the odds was so against me. Everyone basically said he ain't gonna win. I've never rode British tracks. I've never rode Pirelli tyres. I haven't raced without electronics. Never raced a superbike style bike. I've always been on Grand Prix bikes. They're the same, mate.
Pretty
to
much
me,
the same.
it's the same. 2 wheels and the fucking engine, it's the same.
Bottom line is, you won the British Championship. First year, only did 1 year?
I did 1 year.
1 year, won it, went into the World Superbikes,
Yeah.
right? Now you're, what, 2 years deep into World Superbikes?
Yeah. Can I just touch on something
Go on,
the
go on.
British
Yeah,
Superbike? A month before month and a half before the first race, a month before the first test we did for British Superbike, I broke my femur.
Do you know what? I've got a question about that. I've watched you on a bed. Sounds weird, I know. And it is disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you're like pussing, the bed's soaked, you've got a massive scar down there, you've got your hand up here, with your whole arm is black.
So,
Did you do that? When did you do that?
It was off season, January.
Season too?
So I did, I said I did my ligaments. Just as that got recovered, I packed all my shit. I drove to Spain to do my like pre-season training camp. I wanted to start riding a superbike, get used to the tires on small tracks. I had a mini bike to train with. I got there, I did one run, one cycle. I went to the track. I was riding the big bike all day, great day. Went on the mini bike on the small track to practice some other stuff, and the throttle stuck open in the fastest part of the track. It was probably doing maybe 60 miles an hour, nothing great, but on a small track, pretty big. I lost the front and I saw a wall and I thought, fuck. So I tried to move myself. I moved away from the wall. That's what cut me open, because I caught the wall. And I thought, fuck me, I'm safe. And at the moment I thought that,
The bike hit you?
no.
Oh.
There was a concrete block drain thing. It was like this high, 1/2 meter by 1/2 meter. And on the top was a metal plate.
Surely that should not have been there.
Should not have been there. We're in Spain. It's a bit more old school. But the plate on the top was turned off. So if you imagine it's square and the plate's corners were off. So that opened my thigh basically. Then when I hit the concrete, broke my femur, and I was led there, and I was like, that ain't good. I said, boys, it's fucked, job's fucked. It ain't getting ambulance. I could feel I was bleeding. I thought, And Jake Dixon, who's racing Motogp this weekend, British rider, he was there, and a mechanic there, and they came over and they both went white as a ghost and went, fuck me, get an ambulance. And I thought, no, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. Get an ambulance. But I was losing a lot of blood out of my leg, and the ambulance took 35 minutes, and the last 5 minutes I just wanted to go to sleep. I literally said, this is it. This is it for me. I couldn't hear an ambulance. It wasn't coming. I started shivering. It was like 25 degrees out. I was shivering, and I just started having that, like, just falling asleep. And my mechanic at the time was saying, just stay with us, just stay with us, just stay with us. And the moment I literally was just thinking, fuck it, this is it for me. I heard the ambulance, and that kind of got me. Got to Valencia Hospital, got me kind of stable. They opened up my leg to get the dirt out. They resealed it again, come in the next day, opened it, cleaned it. I was awake all the time they did it. And I said, what's the situation? They said, you've got a stone the size of your thumb up in your pelvis.
We'll get some pictures on these podcasts to show people.
And they said, we can't get it. And I said, well, what's the plan? Oh, we need to operate. I said, all right, well, like tomorrow.
You must have some crazy insurance policies.
I do pay a lot of money for insurance. It costs money every year, but for those...
you have to pay that, not your team.
No, we pay for it. And I've always been like, is it worth it? It's worth it, because I was not even in a room. I was in the corridor because the hospital was full. I was there 3 days on my own, not knowing really what was going on. And they told me, we can operate you on next week. That's 5 days with a stone in my leg. I'm thinking, infection? No. I said, let me go to Barcelona. I can go there and I can have private treatment. I'll get in, done. No, don't want to transfer you. Tito Rabat races in superbikes, ex-Motogp rider, ex-Moto2 champion. He was from Valencia. I called him. I said, bro, I need your help. He's mad as a box of frogs. Basically, he signed me out of the hospital. He got me a private ambulance, which was like a van, basically. They put me in. It was 3.5 hours with no painkillers down to Barcelona. I was on my own. A guy didn't speak a word of English in the front. And I got into Barcelona. And I remember I come out this van thing. Got to the check-in desk, got my credit card, I threw it over. I said, do what you got to do, and they rushed me straight in. The operation, they said, was going to be 40 minutes, was 2.5 hours, because they had to pin the femur, clean it. I got the scar that goes all the way up here. I woke up in intensive care because of all the blood that I lost. And then when I kindly come around, and that was all done, I was led in a hospital bed. The team manager from my new team said, we don't really know if Scott's any use to us. Wow. And I thought, fuck me. Like, I'm trying, I'm down, and now you're like standing on my head right now. And I said, I'll be at the first test, and I'll show you that I'm worth what needs to be.
And that was World Superbike?
This is British Superbikes.
Okay, got you.
The test was in just under 4 weeks. The doctor came in to me about an hour after, and I said to him the situation. He says, you're going to need 8 to 10 weeks recovery. I said, that's great, but that ain't happening. I said, I need to ride. He said, it's impossible. He said, 6 weeks, maybe. It's impossible.
Alex, do you reckon you just close the window and you got a set, please? Carry on, mate, sorry.
He said, it's impossible. I said, it's not. I said, I need to. I had a big hematoma, I couldn't bend my leg. I stayed in hospital for like 10 days. Got back to Valencia where I was staying, and I was just physio.
Surely that whole time though, just like, you know, sometimes depression is isolation, right? However you perceive isolation. Surely you're in so much pain, you've got so much time on your own. Surely that must have been tough.
The hospital thing was tough because I just wanted to get out of the bed. I just wanted to get up and start moving. They wouldn't let me because of the situation I was in. And I couldn't get up. I kept getting up and blacking out, passing out, getting up, passing out. So they had to put 2 more pints of blood in me, and then I was a lot better. But when I got back to Valencia, I was, first thing in the morning, I'd literally wake up, go to physio for 2 hours, crying my fucking eyes out. I'm not afraid to say it because the pain I was going through. Come back, go to sleep.
People seen the pictures, they'd understand.
Come back, go to sleep, so I was exhausted. Wake up, try and walk in the sea or do some stuff in the house with my dad. So my dad was there for a couple of days. Go back to sleep, exhausted, wake up, go to the gym, try to pedal on a bicycle, because once I could get it, I could get the blood moving. But I couldn't do that for 3 days. Then from the gym, I go into the pool and I would be walking in and out of the pool till 10 o'clock at night until they kicked me out. I was the last person in there. I did that every fucking day, every day. Trying to sit on the bike every morning. No chance. And I'm thinking days are counting down. About 4 days before the test was, I could sit on the motocross bike because it's a bit higher.
Yeah.
I thought I can ride supermoto.
Is it a bit thinner too?
Yeah, but it was more, I couldn't bend my leg this way. I could walk, at this point I was walking, but I couldn't bend my legs, I had a hematoma in here. And I got on this bike and it just kind of happened. And I phoned up Tito Rabat again. I said, look, I need to borrow your supermoto, I need to ride. He's like, no problem, it's at the track, go there. So I rode and I thought, if I can ride, I won't be thinking about the pain. So I managed to get to that test. So it was 3 weeks and 4 days. I was back on a bike again. I got to the test and the team didn't want me saying anything. So all of this 3 weeks, I was posting old pictures. Nobody knew I was injured. So I was like living the great life, training, getting ready. And I turned up, everyone's like, fuck, why are you limping? What's up? I said, I just, damaged my ankle a little bit, training. So nobody knew at this point that I broke my femur. So we tested. It was the first time for me with Superbike, the team, the tyres, and no electronic. And I was the fastest on day 1, and I set the lap record, which was held by a World Superbike rider before. So I topped the times, and I come in after the 2 days, and I said, look, I can still win this championship.
So was this before you even done British Superbikes?
Before, this was my page turn to get into Superbikes, and this happened, and then already he said, you're not really much use to me. And I said,
just kind of came at the worst kind of...
Honestly, it felt like everything was against me. I just thought, how much more can I take? But at the end of the season, when I won the championship,
it was worth it.
I built so much confidence through that year. I was having a whale of a time. You know when you said before about Scott's not getting results because he's not serious, he's not doing this? Ask anyone in that paddock who was the party creator, was me.
But I say it again, like if you had the right bike and stuff, and you was coming top 3 all the time, then it wouldn't matter.
But this is my point, and this is what pisses me off in this sport.
Like same as Conor McGregor, he gets away and does anything he wants, but now he's losing.
Yeah, it's all his fault.
Yeah.
But this is my point. I was doing everything I shouldn't have been doing, and I was winning. So nobody could say. Do you know what they was doing? They was encouraging me to do it more. But you go somewhere where you ain't getting the results, and this is wrong, you're not training enough, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. I was there and I was enjoying my time and I was winning races. So I turned around and said, like, to be honest, my manager was one of those critics because he was a team manager and my manager, and in Moto2, and he was saying like, oh, you're not focused
But
enough.
he's supposed to hold you accountable. Sometimes you do need, obviously I don't know that situation, but sometimes you do need that accountability, whatever that is. So I got people around me who, if I slip up, if I do things or I go there, and they tell me sometimes the things I don't want to hear, but then sometimes I have to be able to hear it.
But he used to say like, oh, you're not fit enough. I was a beast. I was training 6 hours a day when I was 18, 19. I wanted to win. But he says, oh, you're not fit enough. You're not this. You need. And I saw all these special people from my mind, from my body, like everything. So when I won that championship in BSB, I said to him, I said, Michael, you remember you told me it was me back in them days, and I told you it's not. This is what I mean. And then he looked at me and he said, you know what, you're right. So now I've got that mediocre balance where I've had one end of the scale to the other. I've got all that knowledge, which now I feel like when I went back to World Superbikes, because remember they all wanted me to pay 80, 100,000 to ride? Now, after 4 or 5 rounds of British Superbikes, they were asking to pay me to ride. And I said, this is, you know, I put myself back on the map. But I said, when I go back to world level, I need to act as a professional. I can have a bit of fun.
Do you think you've done that?
Yeah, I've got to control myself a bit, and because
it comes with time and age.
Exactly.
And like,
you know, like when you're about to do something, you think, I probably shouldn't do this. I'm not going to do it. When you're younger, you think, I probably shouldn't do it. Yeah, I'm going to do it even more.
So let me ask you a quick question then. What is the dumbest thing you've ever bought?
Dumbest thing I've ever bought. Oh.
On the spot.
Dumbest thing I've ever bought. Like the dumbest thing I've ever done. I haven't bought anything really.
Depends how appropriate it is.
Dumb. Dumbest thing I ever did is I broke up with an ex-girlfriend and she didn't have a car. I said, you know what? Use my car and do what you got to do. Get yourself set up. I gave her a couple of grand. I said, go get yourself set up. You know, I don't want any issues. It just ain't working. Yeah, sound. So I went away racing. I come back. Gone. Car gone. I said, where's my car? She's like, what car? I was like, my car. She's like, you mean my car?
Oh, wow.
I said, no, my car. She said, no, it's mine. She put it in her name. I never saw the car again.
What car was it?
BMW 1 Series.
Oh, wow.
So I was just like, okay. I said, you know what? I was 19 at the time. So it was a bit of a big hit for me, but I thought if that's the person you want to be and you want to sit in that car and think of me.
It's a small cost long term. Really.
Yeah, I just thought, you know what? Have it.
All right, I'll take that. So obviously it's a Dreams to Reality podcast. The dream is you get paid to do what you want to do. You travel the whole of the world, flying everywhere, living the best life. That appears to be the dream. What is the reality of the situation though? What is even the most obsessed motorbike fans, what do they not know about what happens behind closed doors? So even things like you've said today, just you have to put your own money into the buying your own clothes and stuff. You also have to sometimes, some people pay to get a ride. What is the reality of the situation?
Is most of the time what you see on TV is what they want you to see on TV. People probably think I used to fly around in private jets I do Ryanair flights. I don't do private jets, never have, probably never will. Also, it's just not my style. I can only tell you from my side, I don't know what others do. We work every day and dedicate every day of our life to this, regardless if we want to or not want to. We have to. Bad days, good days, we have to do what we need to do. We get underpaid, in my opinion. When you're risking your life at the level we are, majority of riders are getting very underpaid. Especially when I've been in California, I know what people are getting paid to sit in an office and basically earning the same money I'm earning. I'm thinking, well, that ain't kind of right.
You're putting your life on the line.
Exactly. And every other weekend.
And I imagine there's been times throughout your whole career, I've seen it, people die and accidents happen. And
it does happen, and more often than you think it happens.
Yeah.
You know, we don't really have family time. You know, people think traveling is like oh, you get to travel the world. It's great for 6 months, but 10, 12 years down the line, you get sick of it. You get sick of it. You know, and we don't go to these places, arrive on like a Monday and have 3 days holiday
That's
sitting
what I was
on the
going to
beach.
say. Like, you travel back on a Sunday right after your race.
I try to, because then
You have longer at home.
Monday I can be home, Monday I can be training for the next one. It doesn't stop. It doesn't stop Sunday, oh, I won the race. Oh, no, like I won the race. What can I do to improve for the next one?
So how do you become, you're a world-class athlete. What is, if there is one, what is the success formula to make that happen? Is there any common...
As an athlete in general?
As an athlete in general, don't matter what sport.
Sacrifice. You have to sacrifice a lot. A lot. And you have to be dedicated. You can't cut corners. Like, people seem to think, oh, yeah, you know, like, doing what you do, I could do that, I could do this. Yeah, you probably could do what I'm doing for maybe a couple of days, but you won't be able to do it continuously every single day. Every single day. Off season, people think, oh, you get, you know, 2 months off, you must have a great time. But them are the hardest times of the year. They're where we're training the hardest to be ready. You got to sacrifice family, friends, good times.
Even when you're out on a bike, your push bike, you're out 4, 5, 6 hours sometimes.
You know, but I love it. The good thing is I love to work hard because it's the only thing I know how I can be successful. I know when I was 16, 17, I pulled out of a race to heat exhaustion. Freaking blacked out. I thought, fuck. I woke up in the office, everyone around me. Now, I can win on the hottest days. Last year, we had the hottest ever recorded race, 45 degrees Celsius, and I won. That was massive to me.
Surely going 200 miles per hour on a bike, you know, gives you a bit
It's
of...
hot air, mate.
Yeah,
the bike
true.
runs at 120 degrees. That
Wow.
goes up, you're in a leather suit. You got a helmet on. You imagine just sitting in the sun in a leather suit and a helmet. Imagine sitting on a bike and having air temperature. The track temperature was 58 degrees. Heat rises, everything's coming through you. And I can now win when I was one of the only riders that couldn't handle the heat. Now I can win in the hottest condition. Why? Because I went to the drawing board and thought, I need to work on this area. Heated rooms, training in heated rooms all the time. So now I'm in a position where it's not a doubt to me. I'll never be in a race and think, oh, I don't know if I'll finish this race if I need to back out. Not even an option. And I can only do as much as I can do from the preparation side. The talent side is what I've learned, and I'm always trying to learn more to be better. But you have to work every angle all the time. You can't just do it for a week and then kind of forget about it.
Let me ask you, do you feel like you've met your potential, reached your potential?
No, I don't.
Do you feel like you're in your prime or you're reaching your prime?
I'm in my prime. I would say since the BSB thing is proper, like I've gone, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to be world champion. I wanted to be world champion when I was younger, but it's all different, so much going on. But now I feel like
you've got different reasons.
I feel like I'm under control. Everything's a bit more relaxed. I feel like I generally have a chance of doing it, like I can do it. And that makes
6
a
rounds
massive
left.
thing. Yeah.
Currently sat in third. How are you feeling about it?
Good. You know.
What is the Super Pole race? What is that?
It's basically a sprint race of 10 laps.
Yeah. It's an actual race.
It's a race. You get points, but you get half points, and it determines your qualification for the next race.
Got you. But you get points, so it's still quite important.
Yeah, you get half points. A bit of a monkey race, really, because if you crash in that race, you start 16th. So it's like you need to push to win.
But is that why they're doing it, to make it a bit more exciting?
A bit more exciting, yeah. And to 10 laps, there's no tyre save. Everyone's just
going for it.
Everything.
Do you normally ride faster on a Super Pole race?
Yeah, because it's just a sprint race. No tyre save, 10 laps, hold your breath, and just put everything into it. But you need to be sure that you finish the race.
Do you have intentions of potentially going back to MotoGP?
I did, I'll be honest.
Do you feel like you've got something to prove?
Absolutely. The problem is I'll never get that opportunity, and I have to accept that and let it go.
Why though?
They say I'm too old. is what it is. You know, I'm 28, but apparently I'm too old. I did ask my manager to inquire on a situation for next year because my contract ended. And we got some response from some teams basically saying Scott doesn't fit our program. We're looking for younger riders. You look at Motogp now, they're bringing guys that are so young. So I said to him, if I get an opportunity to get a good bike, I will go for not a lot of money and prove. I feel like I needed to prove something. If I get a response that says, look, it's not happening, too young, too old, I have to bite the bullet and I have to put that in my mind away somewhere else and not think about it. And the answer come back, not happening. I said, you know what? That's it then. I ain't thinking to go back to MotoGP. I need to make my career here. I need to be world champion here. And that is my goal.
Whenever you decide to retire, what is next for you?
That's a mad thing.
No ideas yet.
It's weird because I sometimes think, I want to retire by the time I'm 30. But I think, well, that's 2 years, probably not going to happen. And when I'm enjoying the racing and I can really show my potential, I'd race as long as I can. In my head, because also I'm quite serious about my cycling, it's a big thing for me. I would like to make some good level of cycle racing. But that's kind of on the back burner at the moment. I'm just kind of building and training and building that if one day I decide to retire and I want to try and make something in cycling.
Amazing, yeah.
I'd like to do two different things. I always have.
Never guess what I signed up for.
What?
Obviously a bit fat right now. Totally understand. Dave knows. Don't laugh. I've signed up for the Ironman in Bolton next year.
Have you?
Yeah.
Fair play.
Don't
Full distance?
Yeah, full distance. I know. What are you laughing for?
Can you swim?
No.
Can you run?
I could just about float.
Well, that's
I mean, I can
it.
survive in the water,
Yeah.
but can I swim? No. I have no technique. Can I run? A bit too fat to run. I'm very flat-footed, and I've just started doing some little bikes here and there. However, I feel like I focused so much on family, business, everything over the last years, and there's been a bit of sacrifice, bit of an excuse too, where I've neglected my fitness completely. Before I played American football for GB, done all stuff all around the world, in shape, obviously not Ironman shape, but at the same time, I've lost myself a little bit. So I've set myself a challenge where I'm like, I got to become a complete different person to achieve this. But yeah,
That is a challenge. I wish you all the best, honestly. I signed up to do an Ironman and I started training for it. And problem with me, I can't do something to do it. I want to do it to win it. Even if I can't win it, the mentality is to win it. So I'm training like a professional triathlete.
and
I
most
didn't have...
successful triathletes, they're older too.
Yes, this is the
So
problem.
you still got time, man.
Yes, but I started training and I was like, this ain't for me. You've got 3 disciplines you've got to dedicate to.
All right, moving on. I'll come to that next time. All right. I just want to say a massive thank you, obviously, for your time, for taking this opportunity to come. Honestly, it's been a pleasure connecting with you, and even hearing your story and ask you questions I don't think you've probably ever been asked before.
No.
Even talking about your mum and that whole situation as well. I think it paints a picture of where you are today and your whole journey. And I find it super fascinating because I've been there too, like severe depression, thoughts of suicide, all of this. And at that point when you was going through that, that's when you was acting a certain way to put on a show, to hide it ultimately. I think that's I think it's amazing that you've shared that. So yeah, thank you.
Nice.
Any last words?
No, it's been great coming down. Thank you for
I mean, you could have just
inviting
been
me.
coming to somewhere you didn't know.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have your bike stolen off you.
Yeah.
It's not Gloucester, is it?
But no, like the main thing is, like when you touch on the subject, is life will always be hard, regardless. But it's how much are you willing to step up to beat it? And there's always light at the end of the tunnel. Like that's one thing I always say to people, because what I've kind of been through, it was not severe, but it made me realize. And then I realized like a lot of people are suffering out there. But when people say you can do anything if you put your mind to it, yeah, but you need to put a lot of sacrifice and dedication to that. and it will come. It won't come overnight. It won't come in a year. It won't come in 2 years, but eventually it will come. So if you have a dream, don't ever give up on it. And if you're suffering, you can't give up on it. And you're the only one, in my opinion, if you're suffering, that can change it. You can talk to people that can help you, but you in yourself need to make that decision.
That reminds me, I was listening to something the other day, to be a bit cliche. A guy called Jim Rohn, he said, if you think trying is risky, wait until they hand you the bill for not trying.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, work hard now, play a bit later, or vice versa. I don't feel like we've got nothing to lose. For me personally, I don't want to be on a 9-to-5 job doing, it just wouldn't work. Do you ever feel, before we wrap this up, do you ever feel like you've cheated the system a little bit? So for example, what I mean is I work very, very hard, but sometimes I'm like, wow, like, this is still my job. This is still work. Do you ever feel like that?
I do feel grateful that I have this opportunity, and this is what I said earlier on about my dad and that pushing me so hard, and they got a bit of shit for it basically, because I feel like I would not fit into a 9-to-5 job very well at all, not being at school. You know, it was one of those things.
Can you remember our old head teacher?
From Seven Vale?
Yeah.
What, Mr. Rowland, was it? Mr. Page Rowland?
He's my mate now.
Is he?
Yeah, I'll get him on the pod. We'd sometimes do a podcast called Old Head, Young Shoulders.
Really?
Yeah, so I went from being told off and talking in this class to now like him coming here. So yeah, it's a bit weird.
That's mad, that is.
I know it is.
Fair play.
Because yeah, I think we all avoided him back in school. But anyway, I just once again massive thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And everybody at home, I will tag all of Scott's information, Instagram, all of that stuff in the bio. And remember, in life you've got two choices. There's two tables. One table is a table of excuses. The other table is results. You can sit on one of the tables, but you cannot sit on both. True?
Absolutely true.
Absolutely true. There you go, guys. Thank you. And until next time, bye-bye.